Okay, we're live. Anyway, welcome to the MMA Vivisection. We are UFC-less this week, which means that this is our premiere Vivisection. We're going to be doing a Venator Vivi, Vic and Dio and I together tomorrow. For all those fans who just cannot help but get their Venator fix. We would try to include a lot of swearing and baseless insults just to make everybody feel like we've really captured the spirit. But for now, we're here for Bellator 155. Talk about this big card they've got this week, a middleweight title fight on top of it. Rafael Carvalho versus Melvin Manhoef. Great fun action fight. Pat Curran, Georgi Karakhanyan, Dan Charles, Augusto Sakai, Joey Beltran, Chase Gormley, Marloes, Coenen, Alexis Dufresne, and the feature prelim bout, Marcin held, Dave Jansen. We got odds for all that, fight picks, all that good stuff. Vic, Eddie, thank you guys for joining me. What do you think of this card, Vic?
Wow. Here's the thing. This card actually looks like it's going to deliver a good amount of action, and it's got some very, very good names on it. Problem I have with it is that it seems like it's buried under... You're going to have to excuse me with that. I can't help it. He's just whatever. Thing with this card that's a little disturbing is the fact how under the radar it is, especially on a weekend where there's no UFC. It seems a little strange that they would have it. Not only is it in a market that's smaller like Idaho, I mean nothing against the place, but you're putting all these names out there and such a which looks to be a pretty fun card overall. But it is what it is. Those are just the realities of the sport. But yeah, we're going to get into that a little more. And I wish they didn't put as much emphasis on some of these heavyweight fights, but that's again just another symptom of the sport being what it is.
Yeah, well, it's not a tentpole event, and their recent thing is just kind of like everything flies under the radar until those tentpole events, and those are a huge deal, and then it's back to under the radar. Eddie, what are your thoughts?
First off, find me on Twitter at @TheEddieMercado. Aside from that, I think it's a decent card. I'm pleased with the card, but I can't get enough of MMA fights, so I guess my opinion on that doesn't really matter. However, I did have a friend over here, and I showed her the card and all the people that were fighting, and she had no idea who anybody was. And I'm just like, well, okay. But there's a title fight, which is cool, and this guy, knocks people out, and
yeah, I mean, you can't, like, people who are even casually interested in the sport, the space they have for remembering fighters is intensely limited. You can't take anything off that.
For sure. But personally, I mean, I like the card. I think the middleweight title fight is going to be exciting. You got two strikers that will hopefully just bang it out in the middle of the cage. You got a set of heavyweights going at it, which everyone loves to see heavyweights fight, even if it's ugly. We have Marcin held, who's coming off a world title fight, so I like to watch him fight, and it's actually a rematch against Dave Jansen, so there's some interest there. Marloes Coenen, who is a women's MMA pioneer who does not get nearly enough credit for what she's done for the game. She's going to be in a tough bout with a former UFC fighter, Alexis Dufresne, who's coming in as a replacement for Julia Budd, where that was supposed to be a title fight, and now this is not a title fight. But I'm still interested because both are pretty damn good grapplers, and hopefully they'll grapple. So, I mean, I like it. I think it's a good card.
Yeah. I mean, especially on a weekend where there are no big MMA cards, this stands out as the biggest, and it should be, it'll be a nice way to kick off the weekend too, because there's a lot of regional MMA this weekend. So this is kind of it's a good way to start the weekend for fight fans. First off, we got some news, right? Bellator finally they released Will Brooks. They've stripped Vitaly Minakov. These both feel like moves that, especially in the case of Minakov, have been years in the making. In case of Brooks, months in the making. How do you feel about it, Vic? What are your thoughts on? Do you feel like those are both the right moves to make?
All right, well, starting off with what would be perhaps the less complicated of the two. Situation with Will Brooks is actually, I think, a pretty good idea. In fact, Will Brooks seems very happy about it. It seems like it was a rather amicable split. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't have been made, because much like the Eddie Alvarez situation, you know, you have a guy who you have to pay a certain amount to if you're Bellator, obviously. He's going to be due for another fight. What happens in this situation? If he goes out there, he smokes somebody else, and then he jumps ship in the free agency world, well then, you know, what is that? How does that make your organization look? Let him go now, give him what he wants, and make him happy. You win the PR battle on that end, and not only that, but you also save a little money in the end and make sure that the picture seems a little more evened out. Now, I understand that for a lot of people, it's going to look like, well, these other two that are going to fight for the title, it's not the real championship because this guy took the belt with him and whatnot. Look, people forget about that stuff in the end, and especially an organization like Bellator. You know, we saw this happen with Eddie Alvarez, and then 3 months later, nobody batted an eye. No one. No. Ben Askren's another case of that as well, and same with Hector Lombard. It's just what it is, you know. The transitions, and they'll just move on. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Will Brooks is happy. Scott Coker's got less of a headache to deal with, and you've avoided a potential public relations, not disaster, but being mired in a bit of unpleasantness. Now, when it comes to Minikov, we're talking about a guy who has not fought for Bellator in, I mean, when was the last time? What, 2014? So it's been 2 years now, as of April. Look, I don't know what his plan is. I don't know what he's trying to do. If this whole thing of taking fights outside of Bellator and basically saying, neener, you can't sue me, I don't know what the whole idea is. If he's trying to get to the UFC, as it's rumored, or he just wants to continue fighting on the Russian circuit because he was not happy with the conditions in Bellator. But, you know, it's not like he's been cut from the organization. They simply took his belt so they can maybe add a bit more structure to the heavyweight division that they have left. Granted, it's not much of a division, and there is not much structure either way, but it's something. It's, I guess, them sort of taking the reins from this fighter, and I'm not really – the picture here is going to be far less clearer because, it's again, they didn't release him. They just took the belt off him, so I'm not sure what they're going to do from here or how they'd be able to proceed. I don't know why they weren't able to cut him outright. It seems like that was probably the move that they would have, probably the UFC would have done, unless they're legally bound in some manner. But, yeah, again, well, time will tell.
If it was the UFC, they'd probably just... Okay, if it was the UFC, they'd probably... Yeah, you have to mute that. If it was the UFC, they probably just would have sued him for every penny he owns and then froze his contract for the rest of his life. I mean, that was the Heath Herring route, right? You know, like
I heard Heath Herring was making a comeback. No,
he's not. I don't think he's ever going to fight again because he's still under contract with the UFC.
No,
isn't there a time he's waiting for it to expire? I thought like there's a time frame, and after like that it expires.
He's gonna be waiting for Mun Ra, the ever living, to rise from his grave for that to happen. That's
like there kept being like these rumors that they'd released him, and there was some talk about it a few years back, and then every now and then it just kind of pop up, and it'd be like, yeah, no, I'm still frozen under this, so I can't really do anything. It's just like.
I think those rumors probably came about when maybe there was some hope given to him by you're saying you do have legal recourse, maybe you can do this, and you know things probably just got out of hand on the rumor mill. But it doesn't seem like when he seems to be doing well with his competitive poker career right now. Last I heard, he didn't have any desire to fight as is, so it's whatever.
No. He's got his own thing going. I'm just saying that, you know, the UFC's legacy of, oh, yeah, you don't want to fight anymore, we'll just cut you, is not a great one. It's at least not a consistent one.
Yeah.
But
I think Bellator's making the right moves, though.
They are.
I think cutting Will Brooks is better for Bellator than it is for Will Brooks, unless Brooks already has a deal lined up, which I think is illegal, actually.
No, I don't think he's. I think he's savvier than that. Despite him being a little reckless on social media, I'm pretty sure something on that end. So
I mean, he might be savvy enough to not talk on it.
Well, that's also true, but
because you got to look at it this way, you know, if he's just like at odds with Bellator, ending on bad terms, then that means there's no counter offer when he goes to the UFC. You know, he's going to go to the UFC and be like, I hope you like me, even though I was hella boring in my last fight. Granted, it was dominant and impressive, but he is not drawing in. That's not what the UFC wants. If they want John Fitches, then they would have kept John Fitches.
He will have less leverage, but he's still got like the Chandler KO to fall back on and some other performances. Look, I mean, he's an ATT guy. He's still young. There's a lot of upside. He'll probably maybe get some kind of offer where, again, like a scaled contract where the more he wins and certain perks and bonuses sandwiched in. But, yeah, you are right on that end that he does have a lot less to make demands, you know, to just walk in to kick down the door in Zuffa Empire and go, hey, you know, you have to.
I don't see that. I think he has I think he has better chances getting paid over in the World Series of Fighting or ONE FC like Ben Askren did.
I have the feeling that his interest is almost in. This is just a feeling, but I have the feeling that he's a fighter that's just interested in getting to the UFC and a potential huge payday down the road. I get the feeling this is a playing the long game by wanting, you know, the goal was always to go through Bellator and then jump to the UFC and then work to make money there. And I have a feeling he's probably just gonna like take whatever deal the UFC offers him. Honestly,
the long game is a very dangerous game to play in MMA.
It is a very dangerous game to play in MMA, but I would be pretty shocked if he ended up in ONE FC or World Series of Fighting, even if they were able to pay him more right off the bat, just because I can't, like, at that point it feels like he probably would have been able to get more from Bellator too. Like, if he just was, you know, if it was just about that kind of long-term investment, then he could have just stayed with Bellator and it kept making money there rather than trying to jump and find a new contract.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the UFC paying him any more than Bellator is paying him.
No, but it's the long-term success idea is that eventually if you find enough success long enough in the UFC, you make a couple $100,000 a fight maybe, rather than, which is more than almost anyone else, more than anyone else can offer you without ever even having to be like a massive pay-per-view star.
Yeah, and he does sound like his attitude is, UFC or bust regardless. So, I mean, look, who knows? He plays nice with them, he might just get it. Let's see how it works out for him.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the big news. I'm a fan of both moves of releasing Will Brooks, not creating that animosity, because honestly, that was a hugely poisonous story for Bellator with their Eddie Alvarez spat. And Minikov, if champions aren't going to fight for you, you should strip them. Like, this is something they should have done a year ago. This is something they should have done the first time he took a fight outside the promotion, frankly.
I'll say this, though. Kudos to Bellator for not doing this interim bullshit. It's like, this is our champion. He's just not fighting yet. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, he's not fighting, strip him. Now we'll have a real champion.
Yeah, I still think they should have just done it the moment he started fighting outside the promotion last year. But whatever.
Do you know if that's was that granted by Bellator? Because I know Bellator allowed Shlemenko to fight outside of the promotion.
I'm sure it started out that way. Like, I have to imagine that it started out that way. That they were like, yeah, okay, if you're not gonna fight in the U.S. competing with us, because that's been a thing that we've seen with Bellator fighters in the past, is like Eduardo Dantas getting wrecked on the. Was it in Shudo, Brazil?
Yeah, he got knocked out cold.
Yeah, the Tyson Nam fight, yes.
Yeah. And, so they've had a history of being like, hey, if you're not going to fight in the U.S., you can fight somewhere else, and that's okay.
I'm fairly certain that the thing with Minikov, though, was, at least from what I remember, I don't think Bellator was giving him the go-ahead for that. I believe I remember them being surprised by either that first one or maybe the one he took afterwards. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if after the first fight time that he did that or something like that, it became more of a like, hey, we don't want you to do this. And then he's like, well, I'm in Russia. What are you going to do? Sue me? You can't take me to court over here if I'm not going to go back to the U.S. So
good luck with that.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's dive into this card. And before we get to the first big fight, Marcin held versus Dave Jansen, I want to give a quick shout out to the true feature prelim, Tyler Freeland versus Joe Hamilton, a couple of undefeated young fighters. and Freeland, who bills himself as Hulk hands and is a 5-foot featherweight. I'm looking forward to this fight being a bit of a weird showcase.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, you guys don't have to say anything. I'm looking forward to it. I don't even want to hear Vic's like sighing. I hate freak fights bullshit.
No,
Right
no.
Don't even try to back down from it. The sigh said it all.
The
We're moving on.
sigh is not because of the freak factor. The sigh is the same sigh that I have reserved for anybody who comes through the Gladiator or Explode circuit. I kind of like, I don't know what to expect. I mean, he did make his pro debut in Tachi Palace, but
he's been can crushing.
I don't know. No, it'll be fun.
Can crushing. He's 3-0. How did he can crushing? He's 3-0.
I know.
Come on, give the dude a break.
I'm just excited for this. It's going to be a weird fight. You know, Joe Hamilton, for his side of it, actually looks like a pretty reasonably athletic, also actually pretty small featherweight at 5'7". Actually, maybe this fight's at bantamweight. Maybe maybe Freeland is dropping down. That wouldn't be a bad idea for him to have.
It's at bantamweight.
Okay, it's at bantamweight. So, yeah. For his part, Hamilton actually looks like a pretty reasonable athlete, well-rounded guy, developing, standard game. Should be a weird fight. I'm looking forward to it. That brings us to Marcin Held versus Dave Jansen. And Eddie, why don't you start out talking about this fight?
Okay, I'll do that. I am pretty excited for this fight. It is a rematch. They fought, I don't remember when they fought. It was a while ago. But it was a pretty close match. I felt like, you know, Held was doing really well, like surprisingly well with his striking, way better than I felt like he ever should have been doing. He has this kind of unorthodox, like just gun-ho, just not technical, not anything you really see in any kind of actual kickboxing sport. I mean, his punches land because he doesn't care if he gets taken down. And that's a huge asset to have when you don't have to worry about being taken down. Because if he is getting taken down, then cool, that's his world. That's where he thrives. He's a wizard on the ground. Held is coming off a tough loss to Will Brooks, and Jansen is also coming off a tough loss to Will Brooks. You know, both of the guys, they kind of had a similar showing. They started really strong, took the first round against Brooks, and then just kind of tapered off as the fight went on and Brooks got stronger. But Brooks is a savage, you know. You know, the first time they were kind of even on the ground, actually. I thought Held might have been a little more, had more of an advantage on the ground in their first matchup, but I feel like Jansen really held his own. Jansen, he's 36, Held is 24. That's a 12-year discrepancy. And what that tells me is Jansen is more of a finished product. Like, he just is who he is. He's been this way. He will be this way. Whereas Held is constantly evolving. He's still growing. He's still changing. Another thing is, since their first fight, Jansen has had only 2 fights, whereas Held has had 7 fights. So I feel like, you know, that experience, I feel like favors Held and the ability to grow more as a fighter, whereas Jansen, you know, hasn't been as active. So I'm excited for this. I'm going to pick Held. I feel like he has more upside, but it should definitely be a competitive bout. But I got Held. Hopefully,
all right. Vic, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, if we look at the just a quick note on Brooks versus Held, I was really surprised how well Brooks held his own in that fight, defending against Held and the constant submission attacks that went out there. And it really is, I mean, it says much more about Brooks than it does about Held, because Held has had so many memorable finishes, and just the way he consistently applies the pressure. He's very quick about when and where he's going to snatch his opponent and start working. He's not very he's not one of these fighters that's prone to just going for just anything and making dumb moves. It's a very calculated, quick attack. And I don't know, I mean, even though he did fight Jansen before in the past, I think maybe he might have figured out a little something between now and then, because now you did mention the amount of fights that they both had between their last fight, and now it does seem to me that Held has had a bit more growth. Every time you see him, his outings, his striking looks a little better. His setups to get the fight where he wants onto the ground, that's just looking better each time out. So I'm really going to have to go with Held here, just because of the fact that he's gained the right amount of experience, he's growing in the right areas, and he's getting things done in a manner that I don't really know. Jansen isn't exactly stagnant either, but I haven't seen the kind of progress in his game that leads me to believe that he'd be able to do that much better and actually get a win this time.
A couple of interesting things about this to me. First of all, Held and Jansen have actually been fighting for relatively the same amount of time. Like, Held may be 24, but he started his career back in 2008, and Jansen may be 36, but he's only been fighting since 2007. So it's not, and they have almost the exact same number of fights in that time. So it's kind of a weird, Jansen is older, and I expect him to be showing some of that wear, especially after his big layoff was, and why he hasn't fought so much is due to ACL surgery. So coming back from that, I expect that'll start to wear on him eventually as his career goes forward. It's also worth noting too that Held was apparently injured for their first fight right before it, and so he was fighting through an injury for that fight, and that he feels that I spoke to him recently, and he feels like that was a big factor in that.
What kind of injury was that?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
I wonder if that's why he faded so terribly so late in that fight.
Well, that and him, he's just from what I've spoken to him about, especially coming through the Brooks fight and now after it too, he's just constantly trying to focus on fixing his cardio issues. I remember I talked to him before that Brooks fight, and he was just like, I'm working on cardio. And then after this Brooks fight, he's like, I still faded. I am still working a ton on trying to fix and get my cardio right.
But that's Will Brooks, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. I think Held he needs to get the finish here. I feel like Jansen, he's never been finished for one, and for two, Jansen has 9 decision victories. So that means he wins rounds.
Yeah, Jansen's one of those dudes who, I think of him like a mini Emmanuel Newton, and he's almost exactly as weird. Where, he is he's really unorthodox as a striker. Super unorthodox. And kind of got this janky rhythm. And he's way tougher than you think he would be. He just fills all the space with volume, and he's way tougher than you expect him to be for a guy who's not really a huge or overwhelmingly athletic lightweight. So it'll be an interesting fight for Held, especially because kind of Newton, Jansen also has that thing where he's just kind of really impossible to submit, really tough on the ground.
Or to hurt, for that matter. Who's hurting Jansen, really?
Yeah. He's a tough, weird, funky dude. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's a good benchmark for Held's growth because he's got somebody in front of him who's not going to go away, and that he's going to actually have to be, put a measured fight on to beat. So odds on this fight are Held is the favorite, -167 up to -180. Jansen, the underdog, +153 down to +135. Not maybe wide for a super great underdog bet on Jansen, but it might not be the worst idea to just throw a little change his way, considering he's already won this fight before.
That's exactly how I feel about putting a little down on Held.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's I really think he's got this, but at -180, -167, that's kind of a steal.
Yeah, those are really short odds too on Held. Either way you go on this, you could get a little something out of it. You're not going to get a huge shot on Jansen if you go with him as an underdog. Anyway, that brings us to the second fight, the first fight on the main card. for this Bellator event. Now, Marloes Coenen versus Alexis Dufresne was originally scheduled to be the feature prelim, which and Bellator is really pushing for that down the road. They want to have, it seems like they want, especially for all their non-tentpole cards, to have like a featured online prelim, which, given the nature of the rest of these prelims, I don't understand at all, because Bellator prelims are not like, they don't have the same consistency that UFC prelims do. And UFC prelims have gotten more watered down, but they're all still, because UFC is a very in-house promotion, they only bring in fighters that they intend on keeping for more than one fight. You basically know that the prelims are always going to feature fighters that are working their way up to a potential main card slot. Bellator prelims are not that. That is not the vibe of Bellator prelims. They are scraped together from whatever dudes fight locally and who may never fight for Bellator again, or who may only fight for Bellator again the next time they go to that city. So seeing like a featured prelim where you put a couple of your more notable stars in with that mix, it's kind of like, feels like you're more downgrading that talent than you are upgrading your prelims. Anyway, on that note, Coenen, Dufresne, no longer a feature prelim, now on the main card. Vic, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I don't like this at all. I love Marloes. I've loved her since Strikeforce. I think she's a phenomenal athlete and a great fighter. I understand that she doesn't want to drop. Bugaboo, stop. I understand that she doesn't want to continue dropping to 135. It's harder on her body, so she chooses to stay at featherweight for that reason, for her own health, and I applaud that. Fighting Julia Budd seemed like an interesting idea, but obviously you make the best with what you got, and you end up with Alexis Dufresne, who had very, very poor showings in the UFC. I believe she's... Seriously, dude? Really? Okay. I believe she's coming off of maternity leave, I guess. She was off having a child, yeah? And, yeah, so, I mean, you know, it's that time away from training. I'm not sure how that's going to affect her, but it's basically the Marloes Coenen show. And that's pretty much what it should be. Yeah.
Eddie, what are your thoughts?
I'm definitely excited for this fight, and I'm actually happy this is taking place. Like, I'm not even mad at it. Yeah. I'm a little disappointed it's not a title fight, but overall, I mean, I'm pretty excited. Marloes Coenen is a pioneer, and she has, you know, her grappling is amazing, and she's gone further with Cyborg, the female Cyborg, than anybody else has, so she's tough as nails. Alexis Dufresne is tough as nails as well. Her past two victories were losses in the UFC, but, I mean, she showed balls in those fights. I mean, against Marion Renault, that was tough to watch. I mean, she was on the business end of a striking clinic, and it was tough to watch, but she didn't quit. She didn't give up. She didn't fold. So, I mean, she's as tough as they come, and I assume motherhood will only make her tougher. I've never been a mother, so, I mean, I can't really speak on that, but I can only assume. But, I mean, she's pretty damn good on the ground. I mean, Dufresne has a pretty nice ground game, and, you know, I feel like with Dufresne, we talk a lot about Gladiator Challenge and Explode, and how, you know, guys kind of can crush over there. Well, this is kind of like the first time we saw a female come from that circuit and just get destroyed in the big leagues. I mean, Joe Rogan ripped her apart live, like in front of the world. I mean, he straight up quoted saying she does not belong on this level, you know. And, I mean, that's brutal. Like, I was like, damn. I couldn't believe he was saying it, but there's truth to it. Like, her striking is not serviceable at this point. Maybe it's improved, maybe it's not. But if I was Coenen, I would keep it on the feet probably and work on my striking to get the reps in, get the time in with the striking, because Dufresne is no slouch on the ground. So why even, you know, it's like Joe Schilling when he fought Kato. It's like, dude, just work on your ground game. You don't always have to bang with everybody, you know. So hopefully she'll take the time to work on her striking. That's what I would do. But I think she can even probably get the better on the ground. But I'm excited for this fight.
Yeah, I'm glad it's taking place. Just two, because, you know, not to promote myself, but I might as well, because that's, you know, part of the job. But I just published 10 minutes ago an interview with Dufresne. So I talked to her last week, and I'm glad she's getting this. I mean, she sounds like she wants to fight. She's, had zero hesitation about fighting Coenen on short notice. And it sounds like for her the big things were that, she really learned that she was basically just kind of like out partying through her UFC career, among other things, and not training very seriously. And she figured out that she can't, while she could get away with that on the regionals, she couldn't get away with that anymore at an elite level. Especially like having a kid and all that. It seems like it's maybe really focused her on being more adult. And the other part of it was that she walks around at 170 pounds, and she was cutting to 135.
Jesus.
And she says she gave herself heat stroke before that Marion Renault fight, like the day before. And she could barely roll out of bed to like go to the fight, and then she fought Marion Renault. And so...
Oh, by the way, you can find that interview on bloodyelbow.com.
Yes,
check it out.
Yeah, Zane, don't be afraid to plug your own shit. I mean,
I know.
You gotta know. I understand you're a humble guy. You're trying to, be a man of the people and all that. But come on, look at Eddie. He's the number one MMA writer in Uzbekistan right now because he plugs his shit proper. You can do that too.
That's right. I'm gonna go corner that Ukrainian MMA writer market.
Or tap into Liechtenstein. I hear they're on the up.
They're really thirsty for some MMA, and I'll just start. I'll get myself a translator service and dominate.
Oh, by the way, there's a preview for the Bellator 155 card coming out in about an hour, I think.
Wait, who wrote that shit? I gotta know.
I don't know. It's that one good-looking guy that's always talking too much. Who's that guy?
I didn't write it.
It's the other one, the browner one, the browner guy.
Yeah, Eddie. I had to edit it. Eddie's got his Bellator preview coming out. It's good shit. You should check it out. He did work on it.
Yeah, and there's good content also from Bellator, like exclusive Bellator content talking about the matches. It's good stuff.
So anyway, I'm glad to see Dufresne getting this fight. I feel like she's probably gonna get worked because it's short notice and she hasn't fought in a while, and I don't know that she has the advantage anywhere. Coenen's kind of a legend, but I'm glad, Bellator bringing her back in at 145, giving her another shot to prove herself. And 145 is a thin division, so if they can find somebody who is, who got a taste of the big leagues and is willing to go out and put the work back in to climb back up the ranks, then why waste that kind of potential?
Not only that, but Alexis Dufresne's nickname, the Sneaky Zebra. Come on.
Quality nickname.
Yeah. The world needs to see that.
Yeah. Anyway, odds on that fight are about as long as you'd expect. Coenen is the favorite, -531 to -568. Dufresne, the underdog, +459 down to +385. That brings us to the first of two heavyweight bouts on this main card, Joey Beltran versus Chase Gormley, and the saga of Beltran continues. Oh. Eddie, talk me through this, because I don't understand this fight.
Fucking Christ.
I mean, what don't you understand? Joey Beltran's making his move back up there.
What the hell Beltran's doing? What the hell Bellator is doing, putting him on a main card?
Well, no, it makes perfect sense, and here's why.
Uh-huh.
Let me lay this out for you.
Oh, I gotta hear this.
This is good. Okay, so Joey Beltran was in the UFC at heavyweight. I'm not saying he did well, but he was there.
Yeah.
And he starts cutting weight and getting smaller. He's going
comically smaller.
Yeah, and he's
comically smaller. That photo came up. I laughed for like an hour straight at that photo when he posted it. I feel bad. Beltran doesn't seem like a bad dude at all, but I could not stop laughing.
For sure. And I mean, he's his style, right? He's an alliance guy, so he's like tries to rely on his footwork, and he tries to use his boxing, and sometimes he throws leg kicks. But when you're the big guy, you can't do that. Like, you can't be the footwork guy when you're the big guy. But now he gets to be the small guy, so maybe his footwork will be a little bit better, at least in his mind. Like, that's what I'm saying here. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I can understand why the move up to heavyweight makes him the small, faster guy. So, like, I guess I understand it. I'm not mad at the dude because,
No, I'm not mad. I'm never gonna be mad at Joey Beltran.
yeah, I mean, you know, he's had some tough fights, man. He's had some tough fights, and he's fun to watch. Like, he's just gonna come forward and he's gonna throw strikes, and that's about it for him. Chase Gormley, on the other hand, he's a Reign MMA guy. You know, that's a pretty decent camp. He went 0-2 in the UFC. Stefan Struve submitted him with the triangle, and Brendan Schaub absolutely waxed the floor with that dude. Actually, probably the best Brendan Schaub performance I've ever seen. I don't know. I think Schaub and Mitrione was pretty good too. But I don't know. Gormley's huge. He's definitely going to be the bigger guy here, and he's definitely hittable at times. We've seen him get slumped by Dan Charles, which was I don't know. That was pretty scary, actually. He just kind of laid up against the fence all out. But I'm not exactly sure what he's great at outside of being just a big dude. But I don't know. I expect this to be a sloppy fight and ugly and have that, you know, Virgil Zwicker appeal to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
This has that written all over it. But I'm going to watch is that car wreck that you just can't help but look at. So.
Who you going with?
Oh, we're picking people in this?
You got to pick.
I'm going to pick Beltran.
All right.
As long as he doesn't get caught, he'll win.
All right. Vic, what are your thoughts?
Okay, let's back up a little bit here and remember that Joey Beltran came to prominence as the guy who's supposed to take on, well, I believe he was a replacement in the UFC debut of one Hollis Gracie, the first heavyweight Gracie to get into the UFC. A lot of hype behind him, and the Mexicutioner came in and he just knocked him out. I mean, just brutalized. Well, I don't know if he put him out necessarily, but he hit that dude so hard his fatigue set in. And you know, he didn't have a great run, although he did have some pretty fun, crazy performances. Very unpredictable fights, and I believe that's when he got cut and dropped to light heavyweight. And I guess he
dropped to light heavyweight before he got cut. He was down at light heavyweight against James Tahuna and Fabio Maldonado.
Ah, there you go. See, good. See, because I didn't remember that part. So all that starts. Yeah, no,
you're
okay.
good.
Well, all that happens. He gets cut from the UFC, remains at light heavyweight, drops to middleweight. And now he's back at heavyweight. Okay, so that's a thing. So now he's going to be fighting a guy who is first and foremost a very heavy wrestler, very heavy grinding style, not very good at using his reach or setting up his strikes in terms of combinations and things like that. So this is very likely to be very ugly regardless of what direction it goes in. Unless maybe Beltran sets up some kind of kill shot. My God, what the fuck are you doing? Stop that. For the love of fuck. That's for your mother. Put that away.
Beat him. Yeah. Beat him.
No. See, if it's up to you, I'd put him in the wood chipper from Fargo, and I'm not I see what your intentions are. But
you gotta get the life insurance first, though. That's the thing. If you don't get the life insurance, you're wasting time.
That's some real Hispanic shit right there. Look at that. Get paid. Well, look, I don't... I mean, I'm picking Beltran on this because he does have the ability to put somebody's lights out. And now that he's not cutting as much, he's not cutting any weight. I hope he stayed in shape. I hope his cardio is in check. But yeah, I mean, it could very well be him staring at the lights on his back for the whole entirety of the 3 rounds.
Yeah, I do have to say I hope this move back to heavyweight for Beltran is a response to being a healthier fighter who doesn't cut a shit ton of weight and look like a skeleton, and not I went off my diet and I can't get the weight back off again, so I guess I'm at heavyweight now.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just that he can't cut off the ring to smaller guys. Like, he just can't. And footwork's his style.
To 185, yeah, that was never a amazing idea. But it's just you do wonder when a guy's going back up from 185 to say 230 pounds, is this really because you're oh, this is better for me, or is this because you're I just had to, I love lunch, and now
like Pat Barry?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think just the division is a lot easier to succeed in at heavyweight.
And Beltran's a super tough dude who's always been able to survive on his chin, so heavyweight is kind of kind to him in that way.
But he's also been knocked out by less heavy dudes, less powerful dudes.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
So
those guys weren't wrestlers like Gormley, were they?
what. But the other side to that would be that as guys get lighter, or sometimes when guys cut weight, they get more knockoutable. Like they have
a little
less,
more chinny.
a little more chinny. And his knockouts are really, LeVar Johnson knocked him out, who is, a massively hard puncher. Whether
He's in jail, by the way.
I know. I was gonna say he's a massively hard puncher, whether he's in or out of the cage, or
In the cage.
or in a relationship. LeVar Johnson punches really hard.
Yeah, swipe left, everybody. Swipe left.
Yeah. But then he got knocked out by Quentin Rampage, who's also a massively hard puncher.
Yeah.
And then he got caught by a spinning back fist from Emmanuel Newton. Oh, and I guess Kendall Grove pieced him up, which is that's the one where you're like, okay, Kendall Grove.
But Kendall is coming into his range.
Kendall's, I don't know.
He's coming into his range.
Kendall is the motivated BJ Penn of long-term fight projects.
Well, I mean, Eddie does have a point, though. I mean, the way his striking looked in that fight particularly, like, it was just a great recipe for Kendall to knock him out. So, I mean, I got to give him credit there. It's not necessarily whether or not that's sustainable.
I would say that it's not been a major indictment long-term on Joey Beltran's chin. Like, he's generally an incredibly tough out.
Yes.
That brings us... So the odds on this fight...
Oh, who did Vic pick?
Oh, did Vic, you had a pick?
Yes.
Was it?
I went with Beltran, yes.
You've gone with Beltran, yeah. Okay. Beltran is the underdog, plus 174 down to plus 150. Chase Gormley, the favorite, minus 190 to minus 200. That's a little surprising.
The odds makers like wrestling, apparently.
Yeah. That brings us to our next heavyweight bout: Dan Charles, Augusto Sakai. Can't remember who talked first. Vic,
It's on Vic, I believe.
Vic, go ahead and lead on this.
I like this fight a lot. This could be fun. Dan Charles is a power MMA guy training out of Arizona, and very, very reliant on his wrestling. Although he can be a bit of a slow starter at times in his fights, and it takes him getting a little loose for him to really start stringing combinations together. Probably start getting a little head movement and all that. So he can look good for the initial portion of the fight. The problem is his cardio is very suspect, and he's going to be taking on a guy in Sakai who, man, I wish that guy would just get in a better shape. I mean, he could be so much. It's like I could be ripped right now if I just wasn't so in love with fried chicken, but that's life. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to end up with a guy like Sakai who loves to bite down on his mouthpiece, but still is somewhat smart with his head movement, and he's able to really be pretty accurate in some of these bouts. He's had a bit of a rough go of it lately. He's kind of been he's been taking some damage in some of his last fights, but I just I don't really see many avenues for I don't really see many avenues here for Charles to win other than maybe just taking him down and laying on him, and I don't think Sakai's just going to let that happen. He has been pretty good in the past with getting back up. He has been pretty good as well as at least threatening with some submissions to improve position and then work from there. I don't think he's really got much of a submission game off his back that he's shown in his professional MMA career thus far. So I really am looking forward to this because it looks to be really bonkers regardless who wins. But I'm certainly going with Sakai here. He should be the favorite to win.
Eddie, what are your thoughts?
I am always excited when heavyweights fight. Always, and I always will be.
You shouldn't be. Some of them are sloppy as fuck.
It doesn't matter. Like, just the possibility that someone is about to get knocked out from one single punch, it does something for me that I will just glue my eyes to the screen. In this match, I think it's a good match. I think it's a good test for a young Sakai who's only 24 years old, and I think it's a good fight for Dan Charles to see if maybe he can rise up a little bit through the rankings. Perhaps, maybe I don't know.
I mean, Charles is really serving as a test for Sakai here. That's the setup. It's like boxing, where you're like, okay, let's put you in there with the guy with a good left hook. Charles is like, okay, Sakai, it's like, okay, let's put you in there with the guy who can wrestle. What are you gonna do about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like the Bobby Lashley fight when Dan Charles fought him. You know, just kind of a solid test, like you're saying. I don't know. It's like, yeah, Charles can wrestle, but he's not shy about throwing punches and bunches either.
All of his knockouts are late, so it's not like he's working on a big power surge, you know.
Right, and it's like, you know, Sakai, he is a big dude, and he doesn't look in shape, but he actually has pretty decent cardio. I mean, he's deceptive. And I think I had an epiphany when I was doing some research for this fight. I was watching Sakai fight, and you know, there's kind of been a little, like some friends of mine, they'll like text me or whatever, and they'll say, like, I'll be watching Bellator, they'll be watching, and Jimmy Smith will be on, and they're like, hey, it's Joe Rogan light. And, you know, it's like, haha, that's funny. You know, Bellator trying to be like UFC, the guys look the same, whatever. I kind of got the feeling that Augusto Sakai is the Bellator version of Mark Hunt. He's like, he is not Mark Hunt. He's not the same, but I kind of get that feel from him.
You know who he is? It's not Mark Hunt, because he has some of the weird like looks to him, so I can see where that you're coming with that.
Well, it's not just the looks. It's like the way he's just like a little overconfident.
You know who he is?
Who's that?
Bellator's Ben Rothwell.
Really?
Yeah. Think about Ben Rothwell a decade ago when he was in his early 20s, and he's just like this wild, funky, out of shape looking, monolithic, sort of weird boxer dude who somehow gets all these wins and just keeps on trucking and eventually fought himself into shape and contention. That's Augusto Sakai.
I see what you mean. But there's just something about him. Like, he just reminds me of Mark Hunt. Like, he's looking to strike with you. He's looking to just, I don't know. There's something about
How is that not Ben Rothwell looking to strike with you? Has Ben Rothwell ever been a wrestler? No.
No, but he's a hell of a grappler, I'll tell you that.
He is now. Yeah. But you go back 10 years ago when Ben Rothwell is just like the guy who could absorb all the strikes.
I guess this is the difference. I felt like Rothwell earlier in his career didn't exactly have the technical prowess with his striking. He was big and he hit hard, but he wasn't a technical striker, whereas he wasn't throwing knees from the clinch. I feel like Sakai is way more technical, and he will throw technical strikes. He will use angles. He will move his head. I think he's just a better pure striker than Rothwell was earlier in his career.
That may be.
It seems to me.
But I understand what you're saying, for sure.
He's not Mark Hunt technical.
No.
No, fuck no.
No, but it's certainly.
No one's Mark Hunt.
No, but it certainly seems like Sakai has at least been fortunate enough to have a good foundation to begin with in his MMA career, which Rothwell, I'm not sure what his foundation was outside of maybe some high school wrestling and maybe that. So, I don't know.
And being huge.
Yeah, I mean,
other than physical.
The thing that they both have is just like the thing that makes most successful heavyweights is that they're big and they're tough as shit. And that is
to that point, though, I mean, Dan Charles is a smaller heavyweight. He's never weighed in over 240 in his life. Whereas Sakai is cutting weight to make heavyweight. So Sakai is huge.
Yeah.
Dan Charles is huge as far as I'm concerned, but not in terms of heavyweights.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to... Like, Sakai has too much of the recipe of a long-term successful heavyweight for me to pick Dan Charles to beat him, you know?
Right.
The big thing for Sakai is just going to be, can he fight himself in shape over his career, and how many years is it going to take for that to happen?
And can he stay technical and smart, even though he's young? Because in his last fight against Gallimore, if that fight would have went on 10, 20 more seconds, he probably would have lost, because he got dropped right there at the end by being a little too aggressive when he already had it in the bag. You know what I mean? Yeah. So as long as he can like be smart and avoid those kind of mistakes, I think he could, he could turn into something pretty damn decent.
Yeah, well, heavyweight, he's got like 15 years, so That brings us odds on that fight. Sakai is favored -147 to -165. Charles, the underdog, plus 141 to plus 125. I would say those odds seem short, but it's heavyweight. I cannot tell you how many times I should tell you to not bet on heavyweight fights, and that I never like to see heavyweights over plus or minus 200 in any direction, because who the fuck knows with that division.
I think those odds are spot on.
Yeah.
I think they're spot on, considering where they are.
Yeah. And that brings us to our co-main event, Pat Curran, Georgi Karakhanyan. Great fight. Eddie, talk me to it.
Oh, yeah, I am insanely excited for this fight. I think these guys are at the pinnacle of the sport. Both are exceptionally excellent. You know, you got Pat Curran's got the technical boxing and striking, the head movement, the counters, the footwork. You got Karakhanyan, who's got the insanely wicked jiu-jitsu. I mean, choked Bubba Jenkins unconscious to a seizure. I mean, these are two specialists going at it. But they're not just specialists. I mean, these are well-rounded guys. Each guy is good on the ground. Curran is no slouch on the ground. And Karakhanyan can hold his own on the feet. This is important. You know, you got Curran, who's never been TKO'd. You know, former champion. Rumor has it he's been training with the Black Zillions for this fight, which is a step out from his usual training, you know, with the family. So I don't know. This is interesting here. Can Curran get back to title contention, or, you know, is he more of a gatekeeper now? Is that the role he's going to be playing, where, you know, he fought Emmanuel Sanchez in his last fight, and Sanchez didn't pass the test, so Sanchez goes back, rebuilds, comes back, try to move up. Does Karakhanyan get through, though? I'm not sure. You know, Karakhanyan had that. Let's talk about Bellator only for Karakhanyan. Okay, so he comes out, he runs through Bubba Jenkins in under 2 minutes, right? And then he blows his ACL training, gets knee surgery, comes back the same year and fights Daniel Weichel. Like, what? Like, who's doing that coming off ACL surgery, for one? And for two, who finishes that? Like, he wasn't finished. Like, he made it to a decision. So I thought that was impressive. Even though I feel like he looked like shit and his footwork was non-existent, you know, the simple fact that he didn't get finished in that fight impressed me. This is tough, man. Both these guys are scrappy. Both of these guys, you know, they bring it. I feel like the cardio advantage and the striking edge go to Pat Curran, and I feel like the grappling edge will go to Karakhanyan. But who's going to win this?
Pick. You got to pick.
Does Curran have more ways to win? I think so. But to be quite honest, I haven't seen a complete fight for Karakhanyan since before he lost to Rick Glenn back in the WSOF. So I haven't seen a complete Karakhanyan. But from the partial Karakhanyan I saw, I think he is good enough to pass this test, and I think he gets through the gate and gets into title contention with this fight. So I'm going to pick Karakhanyan here. Even though I initially picked Curran at first glance, I'm going to pick against Curran and go Karakhanyan.
All right. Vic, do you share Eddie's feelings, any of them, about anything ever? Are you on his wavelength?
Well, he hates Batman, so right away I know that shit is suspect.
Yeah.
I don't trust him.
Hang on 1 second. All right, so here's what the deal with this fight that makes it so intriguing is the fact that both of them are really legitimate threats on the ground, and Karakhanyan does seem to have much more of a submission threat. Curran certainly looks like he certainly has more of a penchant for striking. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about this. Dude, fuck, come here. All right, so point is that just looking at these two on the surface and the recent losses that they both had, especially both of their fights against Daniel Weichel, and just seeing how they struggled with some of the maybe I don't know if it's a case of both of them being in the same situation, trying to change too much in their game, or what. I'm not really sure. I can't really speculate too much on what it is, but I can't really put my finger on what makes this such an unpredictable thing to me. It doesn't seem like I can't confidently pick one guy over the other too much, but I think Curran seems like the more complete fighter in the sense that he's a smarter striker. He's able to put himself into better situations. His submission defense is great. And, Karakhanyan, for all of his virtues, and tremendous, tremendous athlete. These are two guys that don't get the respect that they deserve just by the fact that they're not in the UFC. And they really should be getting a lot more fanfare and hype. But that aside, I really think that Curran takes us.
Yeah, I guess I'll say, I don't know, the thing that makes this fight tough for me is Curran's got a problem with moment-to-moment consistency. He's one of those fighters that will fight in these like amazing 30-second bursts of offense and then just shut down for like a minute where he just won't do anything.
It's like ADD, like MMA ADD. It's crazy.
And it's cost him a lot. I mean, I think it's just one of those things. It's like eventually when he's fighting really dangerous opponents, you can't just be tuned out in your fight. And he seems tuned out sometimes. And Karakhanyan's got a problem where he's just kind of like he doesn't have a game that actually suits high-level MMA. He's got a really violent, nice Muay Thai game and a very attuned grappling game off his back, but none of the like connecting wrestling skill whatsoever or top game really. So it's just like if guys can shut down his grappling, they can just take him down all day and wear on him. And I feel like Curran has enough avenues he has the technical avenues to be able to do that. He can stifle Karakhanyan if he can put Karakhanyan on his back. I think he can shut him down. He's a good enough grappler for that and a good enough top player for that. But the question is just, does he take advantage of that often enough to win rounds for me? And
I can't see him shooting in on
like, I don't even know. It doesn't even necessarily have to be shooting in. It's just like
ending up there.
Yeah. And
clinches or something off the cage, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, because Karakhanyan's the kind of dude who, like, if you pressure him, he'll just, like, jump on the guillotine. You know, he'll just, like, okay, I'll just hop up on you and try and squeeze one in there. It's just, like, against high-level, like, it's cool, and if it works, it's amazing. But against really high-level fighters, you're basically just sacrificing position.
It's funny because he did that to All-American Lance Palmer, and then he did it to All-American Bubba Jenkins.
Yeah.
Will he do it to Pat
Curran? It works really well for wrestlers who have a habit of hanging their neck out there.
Curran doesn't hang anything out there.
No, Curran doesn't hang.
He's technically savvy everywhere.
I'm gonna. Yeah, this is tough because I was gonna say I'm gonna pick Curran, but I don't know if I trust his output problems. That's the big problem for me because you know with Karakhanyan that Karakhanyan's always gonna be aggressive. Whether
he's gonna come forward.
Yeah, whether things are clicking for him or not, he will come forward and do what he can in every round. I'm going to take Curran just because I think Karakhanyan is going to give him too many openings and opportunities, and I think that Karakhanyan's game it doesn't, like, he leaves too much technically open when he fights with his aggression, and I think that aggression will create the opportunities Curran needs, but Curran has to, at the very least, he has to counter well, and he has to be prepared to counter well.
I feel like that's a little skewed, though, because against Weichel, the way he just kind of came forward and got hit a bunch, but that's because he's coming off ACL surgery, so he's like, he can't be mobile. Usually, if you go back to like the World Series of Fighting, his footwork was way better, like his striking was way better. I honestly think he has just been hurt.
Yeah.
And his recent
performances. Not hurt now.
I have every reason to believe he is the least hurt he has been since that Rick Glenn fight.
All right.
And I feel like that's a dangerous guy. And I feel like, I don't know, I think on paper Pat Curran looks like the safe bet here. But I just don't trust it. I don't think so.
All right. The odds on this fight, Curran is the favorite, -167 to -175, or to -180 actually. Karakhanyan, the underdog, +145, 135 up to 158. That feels right to me. Curran's going to be the favorite. Just he's got more name value. He's a more known commodity.
Former champion,
all that. But it's a tough fight. Like it is a legit it deserves to be that close. It's a tough fight to pick.
Curran's only 28. I feel like he's like 36 for some reason.
I know. That brings us to our main event, Rafael Carvalho, Melvin Manhoef. I don't think this is a deep technical fight to break down, but Eddie, what do you got for me on this?
I am such a fanboy for this fight. I mean, this brings out everything inside of me that I love about watching combat sports. You got two guys who hopefully will come out and kickbox with small gloves, and that's what everybody wants to see. Aside from a couple hardcore grappling people, everyone wants to see people getting knocked out. It's just in our blood, in our DNA. We enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I hope that's what's about to happen here. You got Melvin, who he's 30, 12-1 in MMA, mind you. He's, of course, ran shop on the kickboxing scene. I mean, 28 of those victories came by knockout. Okay? Like, he's been to a decision, twice? I think only twice ever. So, I mean, this dude comes to bring the pain. He's been fighting since 1995. Like, what? Who's fighting for that long? Striking at that weight division. You know what I mean? Like, that's unheard of. Like, the dude's a freak of nature.
Yeah, he's only lost once by decision, too. So, like...
Yeah.
He's only... of his only going to decision once or twice, it's one win and one loss, and everything else has been a finish.
Yeah, I mean, he's a go out on your shield or, you know, come home with the body kind of guy. And, I mean, I have been a fan since I first saw this guy, you know, back when he was coming out in Pride on the chain with the dog collar. I was like, oh, my God. So, yeah, man, he's been around forever, and he's been knocked out plenty. You know, he's towards the end of his career, and he's finally getting that title shot that I always wanted him to get. On the other hand, though, you got champion Rafael Carvalho, who is no slouch on the ground. He's 12-1. The first fight he had as a professional, he lost by an early submission and has been flawless since then. So, I mean, I like the guy. He's been fighting since 2011. Of his 12 wins, 10 have been by KO. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach, so he's a tall, long fighter who knows how to use that length and hit people at range. You know, and he's smart. We saw his FIQ on display when he fought Joe Schilling. He's like, oh, kickboxer? Let me close the distance and stay safe and, you know, win a smart decision victory, which I love to see. I love to see well-rounded fighters. Of course, I love to see knockouts, but what I like even more than that is seeing guys who are smart who will win a fight and exploit someone's weakness. So, I mean, this is going to be a good match. Carvalho just won the title against Halsey by kicking him in the liver, which was amazing and phenomenal, and no one thought Carvalho was going to win, but he did the damn thing. You know, he's going to find his openings at range. Melvin overcommits to his strikes, and that's where Carvalho is more than likely going to find his openings and maybe even capitalize on that, or even get to the ground if he can. But I don't think he can get to the ground. Shlemenko struggled to get Manhoef down. I don't think Carvalho is going to get Melvin down. Man, Melvin's such a heavy puncher, you know. Perhaps he can catch Carvalho when he comes in, reaching for the tie plum that like we've seen in the past. That's going to be Melvin's opening. And I think Carvalho struggled a bit against the fence at times. I've seen him show a little passivity, being pushed against the fence and not getting off when he should. But, you know, what elite fighter has Melvin beat that was in his prime? Open question. Can you name one? And
Misaki.
Don't say Rob McCullough.
Kazuo Misaki.
I guess.
Yeah, you got to give him that. How are you gonna not give him beating Misaki?
Okay, but
in the middle of his career.
I mean, when was that though?
Near the end. That was 2009. So that was that was like the end of the prime of Misaki's career.
But that's like 7 years ago, man.
I know.
That's 7 years ago, dude.
He also beat Sakuraba in 2008.
Come on, man. Sakuraba, like what? Sakuraba won in his prime.
In 2008?
I don't know. It's hard for...
Manhoef has had his moments where he has been a competitive, great fighter, but they have not been for a long time.
Yeah, like I feel like he loses to the elite guys in his prime. Just going off his record, you know.
Yeah. I mean, well, he just hasn't. He hasn't even fought that many elite guys. You know, I mean, he can. Manhoef is the kind of fighter that can potentially lose almost any fight, and potentially win almost any fight. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, I think doing all the crunching the numbers and all the figures, I feel like Carvalho has every chance to win this fight. However, hero pick, I'm going to pick Melvin Manhoef because he's my motherfucking dude, and I think he's going to catch Carvalho slipping, and there will be a new middleweight champion in Bellator. And that is my pick.
I got to say, if it came down to, for Manhoef, and I talked to him about this a while ago, like, this is like the destiny matchup for him in order to get that Bellator middleweight title. Because if it had been Brandon Halsey, you wouldn't be picking Manhoef.
Nope. Carvalho, though.
Carvalho is probably gonna strike with him. Probably gonna throw hands. And like that Hisaki Kato fight, I didn't pick Manhoef to win that. Like, Kato's a big, tough power puncher.
Yeah,
Carvalho's a big, tough power puncher. And that's where Manhoef thrives.
I don't think Carvalho is going to want to strike with Melvin. I think he's going to come in and try to clinch with him and get rocked.
That could very well happen. I don't know. I'm picking the dead soul part of me is picking Carvalho. Like,
you're jaded, Zayd. You're jaded. Where's the fandom? Where's the fandom?
I really love Manhoef, and I really want to see him win this a lot. Because I know that this is, too, like, if he loses this, I don't know that he fights again. Like, this may be the end of his career. Because if he wins, he's talking, I win, I defend the belt once, I retire. That's his plan.
Yeah.
And so if he
maybe he would kickbox. Maybe he'd kickbox, but
I don't think so. Like, I've talked to him. He's basically like, I'm not kickboxing anymore. He took that Bellator kickboxing fight as like I want to give back to them and help them kick off their kickboxing thing, but I'm stepping away. Like, I'm getting done with this sport. It's time for me to move on.
Good, too. I'm glad to hear that. I would love to see him walk away, especially with the belt. Like, he's retired with the belt.
Yeah, he's got a gym, a successful one in the Netherlands, it seems. He's got No Mercy team and all that, and so...
And that's a good right off into the sunset. I feel like he could win the belt in Bellator, retire, and then become one of those guys that Bellator has hanging around the events, you know what I mean, like the Gracie Fedor, Vanderlei. Become one of those guys, and then set that up for later on down the road to have a Legends fight with maybe him and Vanderlei or something like that. Yeah,
I just, whatever he's doing, I wouldn't mind seeing him step away on a high note, so I really hope he wins. You know what? For the shit of it, I'll pick Manhoef just for that like insane upset factor.
Yeah, like there's really no legitimate reason outside of a puncher's chance to pick Manhoef here, but I mean, he's
got the best puncher's chance in the history of
puncher's chances. How about when he fought Mark Hunt and knocked him out real fast? Like, who's one punch KOing Mark Hunt?
Yep.
Let alone a guy with the frame of Melvin Manhoef. Like, he's not a huge guy.
Yeah, Melvin Manhoef would be, if he were a legit long-term, like, UFC MMA fighter, he would be a welterweight.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, he is a tiny middleweight.
Yeah, I mean, he's built, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
He's fucking built, but, he's definitely not huge. And he's
5'8". He is there, like, most featherweights are taller than Melvin Manhoef.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And, like, that plays right into Carvalho. Like, Carvalho will be at range, and he'll pump his jab and use a crisp cross and use his footwork and stay away, but...
He could just be a big target up on top of a pole, and that's
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we've seen that.
That's what Kato was. Kato was just a target sitting way up there, and...
Also, everyone who's ever fought Mike Tyson, just about.
Yeah. So, on that note, Carvalho Vic has disappeared. He had a child to tend to. We excuse him that because parenting's more important than this show.
It's
But
he's continuing on the human species.
that's right. That's right. Filling the world with more Victor Rodriguez's.
Hide your women, hide your wives, hide your daughters. There's
Anyway.
more.
Rafael Carvalho is the favorite, minus 265, or minus 246 up to minus 265. Melvin Manhoef, the underdog, plus 231 down to plus 185. Maybe toss a couple bucks on Manhoef via KO. I don't see him. I mean, he's either losing via KO or he's winning via KO. There's no real second option.
Melvin was plus 231.
Yeah, Melvin plus 231.
Okay, so for shits and giggles, okay, if you parlay Marloes Coenen, okay, hold on, where's my other ones?
Oh, for the shit of it too, while you're getting that together, the only prop bet on this fight listed is over or under a round and a half, and the bet on under a round and a half is minus 220.
What is that for? Oh, for the main event?
For Manhoef Carvalho.
Yeah, for sure. No one's taking the over on that. Okay, so if you have Marcin held at minus 180, Marloes Coenen at minus 531, and Melvin Manhoef at plus 231. If you parlay those together, $1 will win you $5.12. So you can extrapolate that, and
yeah,
that's kind of worth it.
It's
$5 gives you $25.
There you go. So that's Eddie's hot tip on this. You can find me on Twitter at @DZaneSimon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at @TheEddieMercado. You can find Vic on Twitter at VicMRodriguez. You can find all of us in our various capacities over at Bloody Elbow. Give this video a like. That's a thumbs up down below. That helps a lot. Subscribe to MMANation.com. That's DOTCOM over on YouTube. Gets you all the latest Bloody Elbow interviews, videos, shows, all that good stuff. We'll have a knuckle up coming at you. We're going to do a Bellator Vivisection, believe it or not, tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a total shit show, I'm sure. And we'll have lots more of our regular stuff coming at you and be prepping for the UFC event next week and all that good shit. So thanks everyone for joining in, and see you next time.